Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up because we're seeing the market that is continuing to see selling pressure across the board with some of the big AI tech stocks that are leading the retreat. What we're seeing here, Palantir down about 10% on the day. We'll be talking about what's happening there. But more importantly, what we're seeing in terms of the broader market and this continued sell-off is a lot of uncertainty about the future expectations, not just with inflation, but one of the big things right now is tariffs. The administration, Trump, came out today, postponed the actual tariff implementation. We'll be talking about some details, why we're continuing to see this market sell off. What we can see is a lot of uncertainty. The market doesn't know how to react, and what's the true kind of motive behind these tariffs? Is this actually to bring, increased revenue in for the government, or is this just some type of a negotiation power to help make important deals with these different types of countries? Because that's what it kind of seems like it's leading. So we don't know which way it's going. Also, we have a jobs report coming out tomorrow, which could, of course, insinuate further selling pressure. So if you're a new or returning viewer, hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos. Let's try to hit 25,000 subscribers, and of course, not a financial advisor, collecting all the data and dispatching it to you. Now, if you pop it up on the screen here, Palantir Technologies closes at 80.46, volume pretty high at about 120 million. What we're seeing here, down about 10% of the day. I'll talk about an article which really wasn't that surprising to me, but is, of course, kind of joining on with the bearish momentum that we're seeing, and that's what we do typically see with Palantir. We've been covering it for a long time now. Anytime Palantir comes down in price, all of a sudden all these bearish articles come out of nowhere, and when it's bullish and everybody's like hooting and hollering, hey, it's going to the moon. Now, where Palantir sits at right now is at 80.46. Like I said, you can see there's been some important support test spots right here with reversals that have been triggered. We'll see what happens if we see kind of a buy the dip situation that occurs in the market. I think the jobs report is going to have a big kind of a big variable on what's going to be happening tomorrow come Friday. Palantir at this $80, continuing to consolidate would be important, considering, remember, there's this large gap right here after the quarter four earnings that push Palantir up past 100 until 125, basically at those all-time high levels. So where it sits right now, I think is at a decent zone. There could, of course, be further, selling pressure, possibly testing the 70s here. We see some support here, not a ton of support though. So we'll just see what happens in come due time. Where Palantir sits right now in the overnight hours is actually we're seeing some buying the dip in the overnight. We could see some retail buying coming at 81.55 right now. So Palantir is up nearly about $2 almost in the after overnight hours. Great to see there. Palantir trying to hold some support. We'll see what happens. Now, looking at some of the bearish articles, let's talk about that. Saying here's a whopping amount of Palantir stock the CEO Alex Karp has dumped. Looking at this is just basically talking about, hey, Alex Karp has dumped about $45 million worth of stock in the past 2 weeks after unloading about $2 billion in 2024. Saying this is new research from Jefferies analysts right here. It reveals this information that Karp in total has sold off about 21% of his overall stake in Palantir. The latest sale barrage, this is after we all know this, talking about this is not new news from this 10b5-1 trading plan for the maximum sale of 9.975 million shares. This arrangement till September 12th of 2025. So he said he had the ability to sell this many shares. This was kind of the plan and the filing, and the fact that he's kind of selling, and it's not surprising to me the fact that we're seeing some selling that's happening, because he said he basically was going to. So this plan, if you guys aren't familiar with the 10b5-1 plan, basically allows these insiders of public companies to set up a schedule to kind of sell their shares over a period of time to help bring transparency for what these insiders are doing. And they're saying here that insiders have been aggressively selling, not just Alex Karp, but some of the top management positions and other Palantir insiders, talking about this as a negative signal to the retail investment community. I mean, I don't know. We know that insiders, of course, look how far Palantir has accumulated in its price. I think that some of the insiders are going to take advantage of these very high valuations. That's not a surprise to me. That doesn't really bring a lot of an emotional response or fear. Oh my God, what do they know that we don't? There's a lot of pressure in the market right now, and if they want to capitalize on some of these astronomical gains and take some profits, I don't see why they wouldn't. So there can be many different reasons that insiders sell. That is not a big shock for me. Remember, yesterday though, Jim Cramer came out saying, hey, Palantir is back, can't keep that one down. Looking at the reverse Cramer theory, still is positively correlated with that idea. The fact that Palantir came down 10% after he came out with a tweet. Interesting. All right, now let's get to the market, talk about what's going on there. What we have is the whole dizziness, the back and forth of the tariffs. Are they happening or are they not? And that's where the market is reacting, and we see a large dumping in the market today continuing. The S&P 500 comes down almost about 2%, NASDAQ at 2.6%. As I said, this is kind of a tech-heavy sell-off. Article here talking about, though, that Trump says he's not even looking at the stock market. A lot of people do predict that this administration will respond to market pressures. But right now, Trump says he's not really caring because the long-term goal is to make the U.S. very strong. Now, the decision to pause tariffs on many of the products from Canada and Mexico due to the stock market, he said, nothing to do with the market. He's not even looking at the market because long-term, the United States is going to be really strong with what's happening here. Talking about the companies that are ripped off this country, our country, and they're not going to be ripping them off anymore or ripping us off anymore. So talking about this in the Oval Office right here, basically he postpones the actual tariffs for another month. They're basically going to be happening April 2nd now, that I believe. And he offered a 1 month postpone from the 25% rate on many of the goods actually imported from Mexico and Canada. When he did talk about the exemptions that we talked about in yesterday's video or the previous video, exemptions for some of the tariffs and not every type of good is actually going to be taxed. We saw a bounce back in the market. However, this time, we're not seeing that bounce back. Specifically, that exemption was for automakers, remember we talked about. So the question is, are all these moves regarding the tariffs, is Trump's really just using that as a tool for negotiations rather than a permanent policy that would actually be implemented and that he may ultimately try to avoid a worst-case trade war? So Trump is still saying that these tariffs are going to take effect April 2nd. And with this back and forth right here, we see a lot of uncertainty, and the market really doesn't know what to do with it. That's what I'm kind of guessing here. In terms of that, we're seeing doubting on the Trump put idea. President right here, growing America prosperity. We're going to see all these ideas that bounce back and forth, but nonetheless, don't really know. What we do see is the S&P 500, the QQQ are now, the top 100 stocks are actually down now year to date. We're seeing these big sell-offs across the market, and investors right now are assessing the weekly jobless claims data that came out today, showing 221,000 initial claims down from last week in economists' expectations. This recent run of soft economic data. This report, of course, leads into the all-important jobs report tomorrow, set for release. So a lot of people will be keeping an eye on that. Nonetheless, we are seeing some other stocks that are continuing to fall at a rapid rate that we have been covering on the channel. Speaking of that, let's go down the lines. Talking about HIMS comes down about another 15% today, 16% nearly, almost to 34.39. Different types of buy the dip scenarios here. If there's continued market pressure, if we're going to see a reversal, Tempest now at $48. This was almost a $100 stock just a few short days ago. And Big Bear coming down even a lot in the after hours, included a big dump in the after hours, down about 30% today. You see Big Bear is down about 12% in the market trading session and even down another 14% in the after hours, currently sitting now back at the zone at 360, at the zone that we've seen a lot of consolidation recently. So if Big Bear can settle down here, hey, this could possibly be different types of opportunities for people to get involved into these different types of stocks when they were just trading at some pretty high prices. AMD falls underneath $100. And if we go down the line, Tesla comes down to $263. Actually, as we've seen some reductions in price targets from different analysts causing further selling pressure. So any stock that we're looking at right now, NVIDIA 110, everything's having a lot of selling pressure. We'll see what happens on the flip side when the market opens. But nonetheless, buckle up. make sure the boots are tied tight because the water is rising. We'll see what happens. What is your opinion? Down in the comments. Where do you think Palantir is going to? Do you think this is just a little hiccup, or do you think we'll continue to see downward pressure that continues across the market? Peace out, take care, and I'll catch you guys later. Have a wonderful day.